धरातल पे उतरे हैं। अगर आप इनके मॉडल को देख लेंगे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट के लिए, तो सब इस पे हंसी उड़ाएंगे कि किस तरह का ये डेवलपमेंट मॉडल है, जहां लाखों करोड़ रुपए के MOU साइन होते हैं और धरातल पर नहीं उतरते हैं, और ये खाली अब मैनेजमेंट और मीडिया के माध्यम से अपनी छवि को सुधारना चाहते हैं।
Let me take this across to my colleague Arun Dhanta, who's now with us on the broadcast. Arun, this is a far cry from when Yogi Adityanath had said "batenge to katenge." What explains this change of stance?
Well, see, Yogi Adityanath is talking about the inclusive development, and in fact, he's saying that his governance and his government have been working in that everybody, whether it is a Hindu, Muslim, or any other community, they are getting all the benefits of the state government, and for the state government, everybody is equal. But at the same time, he also says this. In fact, make that comparison when he says that if a Muslim family stays amongst the 100 Hindu families, they are protected. But if it happens otherwise, when you have 50 Hindu families staying at a place where you have more than 100 Muslim families, can they be safe? So I think on one side he's talking about inclusivity. Secondly, he's also talking about this thing, and also comparing it with what happened in Bangladesh and Pakistan, how the minorities numbers have drastically decreased over the years. And of course, one thing is very clear, that Yogi Adityanath knows that the upcoming assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh is something which is very, very important for him, because what happened in Lok Sabha polls, the way Samajwadi Party gained that momentum.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Brass Tacks with me, Zakir Jacob. AIADMK Supremo and former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Edappadi Palaniswamy met with Home Minister Amit Shah and BJP President JP Nadda yesterday. It was a 4-hour-long meeting. This has led to huge speculation that the AIADMK and the BJP, which were partners before, then got estranged, are now speculated to get back together ahead of the Tamil Nadu Assembly elections next year. But EPS clawed back his position just a wee bit after reaching Chennai this morning. He said it is still too early to talk about alliances and that the election is over a year away. The bigger question is, if they do come together, then do they have the potential of unseating the DMK government, especially given that Stalin seems to be positioning himself with the NEP issue, with the Hindi debate, the two-language formula, etc., as the sole guardian or the sole representative of Tamil interests before a quote-unquote hegemonic center. Will the AIADMK-BJP combine if they do come together? And we don't know about this third pillar, which is Vijay, an unknown factor of the TVK, the new party, so no one knows how his party is going to perform. But if the AIADMK and the BJP come together, do they have the potential to unseat Mr. Stalin's government?
BJP continues to be strong. The current NDA continues to be strong. Our doors and windows are always open for any leader to come and join NDA, to strengthen NDA. And we are not against any party per se. Anybody is joining us with the only aim of dethroning DMK, everybody is welcome.
அதோடு போதைப்பொருள் நடமாட்டம் தமிழகத்தில் அதிகரித்துகிறது என்பதையெல்லாம் சுட்டிக்காட்டி தேவையான நடவடிக்கை மேற்கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்று மத்திய உள்துறை அமைச்சரை சந்தித்து நாங்கள் கோரிக்கை மனு அளித்திருக்கின்றோம். நீங்கள் பத்திரிகையில் தான் போட்டுட்டு இருக்கிறீங்க, அப்படி எந்த இதுவும் கிடையாது. இப்போ முழுக்க மக்களுடைய பிரச்சனைக்காகத்தான் நாங்கள் வந்திருக்கிறோம்.
Now, even though the BJP has hinted at the possibility of reviving the alliance, Edappadi Palaniswamy has played down the speculations in a major way. Here are what his conditions are if at all this alliance were to take shape. For one, Mr. EPS is very clear he does not want the other factions of the AIADMK, whether it's TTV Dinakaran, Shashikala, O Paneerselvam, none of them to be a part of the formal AIADMK, or even for that matter, an extended part of the NDA. Not just this, EPS also wants a high-level steering committee or a panel to be constituted that will formalize the alliance and that will have greater powers than the current BJP state chief, who is Annamalai. And it is well known in Tamil Nadu political circles that Mr. EPS and Mr. Annamalai are not exactly in the best of terms. But the political temperatures are clearly rising in battleground Tamil Nadu. the meeting between EPS, the former Chief Minister, and the AIADMK Supremo with Union Home Minister Amit Shah in the national capital has added some fuel to the speculation about the comeback of this alliance. Whether there is any merit to these media speculation, that of course we'll know in the run-up to the assembly elections next year. But let's tell you what exactly went wrong between these allies who then became political rivals. The AIADMK is against the Uniform Civil Code, which of course is one of the fundamental principal issues as far as the BJP is concerned. Already you have states like Uttarakhand which have implemented that, and this is going to be a key agenda issue for the BJP going towards 2029. Additionally, there is this whole poaching war that's been going on over the last couple of years between the AIADMK and the BJP. Numerous AIADMK leaders have quit and joined the BJP. This is again further divided parties. And thirdly, there is the AIADMK's ever-growing rift, personality-driven rift, one may add, between Mr. EPS and the BJP State Unit Chief, Mr. Annamalai. Also, what further adds to the divide was that senior BJP leader a couple of years ago in 2023, when the AIADMK and the BJP split and parted ways, had even attacked Jayalalitha, who of course has godlike status within the AIADMK. That was the final straw. So how they rework that is also going to be a critical factor. The differences, of course, are galore, but like I said, it's a question of political survival, both for the AIADMK and for the BJP. There is no way individually on their own they can unseat the Stalin-led DMK government. But if they do come together, if they do join forces, then they do have a chance, a very good chance, of actually being able to put together a challenge in the 2026 assembly elections, put together a united, strong front against the DMK. And there is historic evidence to show this. In the 1998 Lok Sabha elections, the second time that Mr. Vajpayee won, the BJP and the AIADMK, the Jayalalitha AIADMK, were in alliance at that time. They managed to sweep the Lok Sabha elections. The BJP won 3 out of 5 seats at that time it was contesting. The AIADMK won 18 out of 22. And in fact, Jayalalitha was part of the AIADMK was part of the NDA at that time and part of the Union Cabinet in 1998. In 2019, however, the BJP failed to make any dents and the AIADMK managed to win just 1 seat out of 39. So they got routed, the BJP-AIADMK alliance, in the 2019 Lok Sabha. But here is what has happened on the contrary when the two have not contested together. In 2004, you remember it was a complete wipeout. In fact, the Congress and DMK alliance won every single seat in that election, in the Lok Sabha election of 2004. The BJP and the AIADMK got 0 seats. In fact, they won the entire state at that time. Again in 2014, the DMK and the Congress got wiped out. In fact, the AIADMK won 37 out of 39 seats in 2014. The BJP managed to get 1 seat. So clearly, there is evidence to show that if the BJP and the AIADMK come together, they have a greater chance of doing better than the DMK Congress combined. But like I said, EPS, after the 4-hour meeting today when he landed in Chennai, he played down that speculation. There are still issues that need to be ironed out. And like I said, these 2 conditions that he has put forth, will they be acceptable to the BJP? Because otherwise, this alliance may not happen. Let's now open this up to our panelists who are joining us. Ms. Madhuvanti is leader of the Tamil Nadu BJP, A. Saravanan, spokesperson of the DMK, and Mr. Shekhar Iyer, senior journalist, is also joining us. Ma'am, let me start with you first. Mr. EPS has played down the speculation. He said this is only coming in the media. I didn't go there for alliance talks, etc., etc. Let's leave that aside for a second. The conditions that he has put forth. Number 1, no question of bringing back OPS, TTV, Shashikala, etc. And number 2, there has to be a grade above your state president, Mr. Annamalai, for Mr. EPS to have direct channel of communication with your national leadership. Is both of this acceptable to the BJP?
Good evening, Zaka, and good evening to my fellow panelists also. First and foremost, this is too early to even be talking about all this. And the fact that Mr. EPS has made the effort and gone with a delegation to meet Amit Shah ji itself, I think, tells us a lot of, you can read between the lines. So I don't think I have the authority to be talking about the alliance. The alliance is something that is discussed and decided by the High Command at Delhi. So we will answer all these questions when the right time comes. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So we will answer these questions when the right time comes, and we will see what needs to be done, because as far as both BJP and ADMK are concerned, for the greater good of Tamil Nadu being redeemed from this absolutely draconian rule that we are facing today with absolutely no law and order and all the scams one after the other, the people themselves in Tamil Nadu are disgusted with the government. So for the greater good, if something is going to work out later on, so be it. So
but let me ask Saravanan. Saravanan, if these parties come together, even in the 2021 assembly election, which your party and your alliance won by a fair margin, if you look at the vote share of the DMK-led alliance, it was 37.7%. The ADMK alliance was 34.4%. So there was barely a 3% gap in vote share between the two alliances. Of course, seat share, you won more than 150 and the NDA alliance won about 60 odd. But of course, that's vote share to seat share conversion. That's a very tricky game in Indian politics. But the point is, that was after 5 years of anti-incumbency against a sitting ADMK government. Now, you are in the hot seat. You are the party and the government that's facing anti-incumbency. So if they come together, there's a very real chance that they can close that gap of 3%.
Yeah. Zaka, you did not speak about the 2019 elections. Compare that with the 2024 elections. 2019 elections, the BJP fought the elections in the alliance with ADMK. I'm talking about the Lok Sabha elections. We got a whopping 52% vote share. When they were split in 2024, our vote share was 48%. So when BJP and ADMK are going to be together, it's going to be very helpful to us. This perception that the BJP, it's not the perception alone, it is a fact too, that BJP is against the interest and welfare of the people of Tamil Nadu is well entrenched. And the kind of statements all of the ADMK leaders have made in the last 1 year or so is going to make it very difficult for them to stitch it. Though the leaders may want this alliance, they may stitch it. And it's going to be very, very tough for them. It is the BJP which wants this alliance. The AIADMK does not want this alliance.
Let's look at it this way. What choice does Mr. EPS have? He knows that if it's going to be a multipolar fight against the DMK alliance, so there's ADMK, there is NDA, BJP plus smaller factions of ADMK, there is also Mr. Vijay and TVK, and then there are other smaller parties. That only means advantage to DMK because the anti-incumbent vote will split. Mr. EPS knows that very well.
Yeah, see, that's what. whatever may be the calculation that the anti-incumbency vote will split or anything. But we are very, very confident that we will be able to win. When the ADMK and the BJP are going to contest the elections together, we will be able to get a very big victory. That apart, there is a pro-incumbency in the state of Tamil Nadu. There is no anti-incumbency. The welfare schemes, what we have been able to roll out in the last 4 years, this has been copied across the country. This is the Dravidian model of governance. Okay. The BJP has followed this in Maharashtra. They give credit their victory to this scheme, rolling out the scheme. It was in the government which was in power. Within Delhi, they said they promised 2,500 rupees. In Haryana, the same thing happened. So people are looking at welfare governments, the governments which take care of the women.
I don't want to come into the misgovernance issues, traffic issues, infrastructure issues. What Ms. Madhuvanti is saying, alleged corruption issues. Anyway, I'll leave that aside. I want to get to Shekhar here, and I think Saravanan made a point. I've got the list of Lok Sabha elections where BJP and ADMK fought together. Let's have that graphic on screen. And those Lok Sabha elections where BJP and ADMK did not fight together. In 1998, when Jayalalitha was the party supremo, the BJP and the ADMK fought together. BJP won 3 out of 5 seats it contested. ADMK won 18 out of 22. And ADMK went on to be part of Mr. Vajpayee's second government. Then in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, the BJP and the ADMK, despite fighting together, they got wiped out. In fact, the BJP had won, I believe, only 1 seat at that time. The ADMK had won 1 seat at that time. The BJP did not win a single seat. In 2014, when they fought separately, when Jayalalitha was alive. The AIADMK swept that Lok Sabha election. They won 37 out of 39 seats. The BJP did not win any, won one seat out of 8 that it contested. And in the 2004 polls, of course, everybody knows what happened in those polls. They fought together, but both BJP and AIADMK got wiped out. So there is a method, political calculation to what Mr. EPS and Mr. Amit Shah are trying to do. Unfortunately, the perception, as Saravanan said, is BJP, rightfully or wrongfully, they've made it out to be the perception in Tamil Nadu that BJP is against the interests of the state, Hindi, NEP, 3-language formula, you name it, delimitation, all of that.
Well, Zaka, we need to look more closely at 2024 elections. See, 2024, post-elections, both sides have realized, I mean, both the BJP as well as the AIADMK have realized, if they had fought together, they could have done better than what they had achieved. I mean, they could have at least won 10 seats. If you look at the votes that were split, number one, in 2019, DMK was in the opposition, AIADMK was the ruling party.
Yeah.
So therefore, DMK being the opposition party, definitely had a better edge than the AD, but today DMK is in the ruling party. So there is definitely 5 years of anti-incumbency, number one. Number two, DMK till today, they are feeling very pretty that they are sitting pretty and they are looking at 200 plus seats. But the dynamics of alliances are constantly changing in Tamil Nadu. See, that is why DMK also is looking at somehow try to bring Patali Makkal Katchi, PMK, into the alliance. And the other development that has happened, this meeting between Palaniswamy and Amit Shah hasn't happened just overnight. It's not so sudden as it appears to be. See, first, the AIADMK, through its interlocutors, tried to reach out to actor Vijay.
Yeah.
But that alliance did not work out because actor Vijay made it very clear he will not play second fiddle to AIADMK. Or he will not play second fiddle to Palaniswamy, because Palaniswamy will be the CM candidate of that alliance. That's one. Number two, since then you have noticed one thing, that is a time when Palaniswamy realized that he left BJP NDA alliance for one major reason, not so much for Annamalai attacking him and all that. It was largely because it was felt with the BJP alliance, the AIADMK was losing minority votes in the southern districts. He thought, his advisors thought that if they leave BJP, those minority votes would shift from DMK to AIADMK automatically. That did not also happen. Now, Palaniswamy realized this is a do or die battle for AIADMK and for his leadership. So therefore, his coming here has come after he has realized that actor Vijay is probably a DMK prop who is out to divide the opposition votes rather than an alternative. Okay. And that is a charge accusation even made by Annamalai subsequently. Now, as far as the chemistry between Annamalai and Palaniswamy, both of them are, politicians. They know what is the ground reality. It is no more the question of their egos. It is rather united they stand, divided they fall. Now,
divided they cease to exist. Because, like you said, I mean, for Palaniswamy, he lost the 2019 Lok Sabha, he lost the 2021 State Assembly election, and he lost the 2024 Lok Sabha. And the same can be said of Mr. Annamalai as well. He lost the 2021 State Assembly elections, the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. So it is really a do or die battle for both of these personalities. We'll see how it plays out. Thank you very much, Madhuvanti, Shekhar Iyer, A. Saravanan, for joining us. Let's see. It's going to be a fascinating election this in the state of Tamil Nadu in exactly a year's time. In April, May of 2026. Meanwhile, let's shift focus from the south to the north. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has triggered a huge debate with his latest remark on the Muslim community. He said that a Muslim family is safe around 100 Hindu families, but forget one, even 50 Hindu families are not safe around 100 Muslim families. Further, he cited examples of what we are seeing in neighboring countries, whether it is Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan. The UP Chief Minister said that Muslims are the safest in Uttar Pradesh, but they are safe if Hindus are safe. So basically, he made the contention, which has been a long-standing BJP position as well, that the country is safe only if the majority is safe. If the majority is safe, then the minority is also safe. Let's listen in to what Yogi Adityanath had to say.
100 हिंदू परिवारों के बीच में एक मुस्लिम परिवार सबसे सुरक्षित रहता है। लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ 100 परिवारों के बीच में एक हिंदू की बात तो दूर करिए, 100 मुस्लिम परिवारों के बीच में 50 हिंदू सुरक्षित रह सकता है क्या? नहीं रह सकता। अब बांग्लादेश आपके सामने उदाहरण है, इससे पहले पाकिस्तान उदाहरण था। उत्तर प्रदेश में मुसलमान सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षित है, सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षित है। अगर हिंदू सुरक्षित है तो वह भी सुरक्षित है।
So Yogi emphatically saying that Muslims in UP are the most safe, and his logic being that there is safety in numbers. If the majority is safe, then the minority will feel safe as well. Now, here's what the Yogi government's minority outreach report card says. In 2017, the first year of his chief ministership, the Yogi government allocated 75 crores as the budget for marriage of poor Muslim girls. 2 years later, in 2019, an annual aid of 6,000 rupees was announced for the victims of the now defunct triple talaq move. Now, in 2020, the following year, the year of COVID, the Yogi government allocated 479 crores for madrasas, which was the biggest that was announced in the UP state budget till date. Further, another 783 crores was earmarked for education in minority-dominated areas. In 2022, the Yogi government dedicated a fund of roughly 50 crores to establish health and education-related projects in Muslim-dominated districts like Rampur, Saharanpur, Amroha, Bulandshahr, Hapur and Ghazipur. Now, despite the many pro-minority policies, Yogi government's latest take, in fact, Yogi's latest take on communal harmony has not gone down well with the opposition. They are citing instances of what happened in Sambhal, what happened in other places where there have been communal animosities. Let's listen in to how the opposition has reacted to what Yogi Adityanath said in that interview.
हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी ये बताएं, उनकी कुर्सी सुरक्षित है कि नहीं है? कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि हिंदू मुसलमान की जो अब सुरक्षा की भावना जाग रही है, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि उनकी कुर्सी डगमगा रही हो? याद होगा जब उन्होंने एक बार योग किया था, कैसे एक टांग पे डगमगा रहे थे।
मैं उन्हें साफ कह रहा हूँ, ये सवाल तो मुसलमानों से पूछें, उनके प्रतिनिधियों से पूछें, उनके सांसदों से पूछें। जहाँ तक इस देश की आज़ादी की लड़ाई हिंदू, मुस्लिम, सिख, ईसाई सबने मिलकर लड़ी थी। भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने अपने राजनीतिक स्वार्थ के लिए नफरत बोया है, उस नफरत से हिंदुस्तान कमजोर हुआ है, भाजपा मजबूत हुई।
All right, this of course will become a talking point in the ongoing parliament session as well, whether or not Yogi Adityanath and his claim that Muslims feel safest in Uttar Pradesh rings true on the ground. I want to shift focus from UP to what's been happening here in Delhi over the last week, and this has been the biggest story in judicial circles and beyond that. Justice Yashwant Varma and the cash haul at his residence allegedly is at the center of this controversy after the fire that happened at his residence, at the outhouse of his bungalow, the complex where he was staying. The Supreme Court has repatriated him back to his parent High Court, the Allahabad High Court. The Bar Association there has taken grave offense to the fact that he was repatriated despite the cash haul and the burning of cash that was found at his outhouse, while judicial circles remain under scrutiny following the large recovery of burned cash bundles from Justice Verma's residence. The in-house panel that was nominated by the Chief Justice of India, which has the Chief Justice of the Himachal Pradesh High Court, the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and a judge from the Karnataka High Court, they've started their probe. They went to Justice Verma's residence yesterday, spoke to him for about 45 minutes. They reportedly even recorded his statement. Today, Delhi police officials have testified before the three-judge panel. Some of them who were the first responders also have given their mobile devices to the panel and to forensic experts to try and analyze what they found on the night of the fire, which was the night of the 14th and the 15th of March. Delhi police sources have told CNN News 18 that the Delhi police team, which reached inside the residence of Justice Yashwant Varma, was also made to speak to the Supreme Court appointed panel. They in fact testified before the three-judge panel appointed by the Supreme Court. The Delhi police personnel were also asked to seal the storeroom or the outhouse room where the fire broke out. The New Delhi DCP Devesh Mahala visited Justice Verma's residence today and took stock of what the situation there was. But it's clear that the three judges panel will be speaking, in fact, it has spoken with Delhi police personnel, will be speaking with the fire brigade personnel as well, the first responders who responded to that fire call, the fire alarm call at Justice Verma's residence. And all of that will be collated by the judges panel, and we're given to understand from our legal reporters that as early as next week, they could be submitting their findings, their conclusion, their investigation results to the CJI, who will then take a further call how to proceed. So here's what we know so far. The in-house committee that was appointed by the Chief Justice of India, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, that probe has been fast-tracked now. We're given to understand the preliminary findings will be shared with Chief Justice Khanna as early as next week. Number two, the Chief Justice of India wants a logical conclusion without any further delays. He wants to get to the bottom of this case. What is the source of that money? Has it got anything to do with Justice Varma? Does his defense, does his explanation add up? And if not, then what the next step is going to be. Point number three is that this judges panel, which includes the CJ of the Himachal Pradesh High Court, the CJ of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and one of the judges of the Karnataka High Court, they will hold their first sitting with the CJI once the report is submitted sometime next week. Point number four, whether or not a criminal investigation is required will be born of the findings of the judicial panel. Of course, they don't have a remit to conduct a criminal investigation, but whether or not the police file an FIR will be basis this in-house committee's findings. And point number five, the in-house panel will be in Delhi for the next 3 days at least, so which means their recording of statements, their findings will all be concluded over the next 3 days, and then of course they might take a day or two to write up their report. And point number six is that the panel will also soon summon the concerned members, not just the first responders, but possibly also Justice Verma, his family members, and also his aides and his staff members who were either staying or who had access to that outhouse and the residential complex where he was staying. And point number seven, the panel is also likely to meet the Delhi fire chief as well as the top cops at some point of time. Justice Varma's staff will be quizzed as well, is what we're given to understand. Let's move on to the other big story. As US President Donald Trump's tariff deadline is inching closer, the world is keeping a very close watch. Today, India and the United States began a fresh round of negotiations. The Assistant Trade Representative, Brendan Lynch, is here in the national capital. Top government source has told CNN News18 that over the next 3 days, both sides will be focusing on setting the framework for a structured negotiation. Finalizing the terms of reference will be a key agenda in this round of talks. Both sides are hoping to establish some kind of a roadmap and a timeline for negotiating a bilateral trade agreement. Remember, when Prime Minister Modi had visited the White House in February, both leaders had agreed that they will conclude a bilateral trade agreement as early as possible, possibly before the end of this year. The first tranche of that BTA will be about laying the groundwork for future negotiations, with completion of the BTA expected by the fall of this year, when Donald Trump is expected to be here in Delhi to attend the Quad Leaders Summit. The United States is looking to engage with India. It's a very, very different approach that Donald Trump has taken when it comes to Canada or Mexico or China, where there's a great degree of animosity. He's already imposed or threatened to impose 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico. He's already imposed 10% tariffs on China, and he is trying to take a different sort of approach as far as India is concerned. So as trading partners, some of America's biggest trading partners are scrambling to secure some kind of an exemption or a carve-out out of the tariffs. The US president has got everybody guessing. This time he has signaled that he plans to limit the exceptions to his tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs, which will kick in from the 2nd of April. This was just 24 hours after he said that there will be a great degree of leeway and exemption. So clearly, Trump is also blowing hot and blowing cold. Let's try and see if we can listen in to what Trump said. All right. The United States. So here are the 3 or 4 areas or the sectors where the United States wants India to reduce its tariffs. 150% is the tariff that India charges on alcohol. Of course, bourbon whiskey, India had reduced that to 100%, but Mr. Trump and his administration want that to be reduced even further. There's up to 100% tariffs on agricultural products. Remember, this is being done to try and protect the Indian farmers, the Indian agricultural community. The Trump administration wants that down as well. And certain automobile components too, it goes all the way up to 100%. Just recently, the duties on electric vehicles have been reduced from 115% down to 15% if the EV manufacturer manufactures in India and sets up a plant worth $500 million. Let's listen in to my colleague Pallavi Ghosh, who's decoding what India can expect from the Trump tariffs and how, and if at all, there is a way for India to circumvent it.
As we are all aware, the new tariff policy of America is going to come into effect from 2nd of April. And there have been a lot of worries as far as the Indian economy is concerned, and of course many of the world economies who engage with America as to what really could be the impact on them. Well, India has made it very clear that it wants to actively engage with America, and that is why over the next 3 days, while the American delegation is over here, the terms of reference are going to be negotiated. Indian government has made it very clear that we are not going to see ourselves as being on a back foot. It's going to be a positive discussion between both the sides. On some issues, India is ready to give relief to America in terms of tariff, but largely over issues, there is going to be a one-on-one discussion which is going to take place, and this terms of reference discussion between America and India is very different from the kind of engagement which America is going to have with other countries like China, Mexico, where there's a kind of trade war which is taking place. Remember, the Prime Minister and the American President actually shared a very warm and good relationship, and that is going to be one of the important factors in why these tariff talks are expected to be in a very good condition. Now let's look at some very quickly on some of the aspects on which this discussion is going to take place. They're going to decide on the schedule and the timeline of talks as far as the BTA is concerned, which is of course the trade negotiations. Apart from that, they are going to finalize the terms of reference for tranche 1 talks, and also by autumn the level of tranche 2 talks which are going to take place. So this is essentially the kind of negotiations which are going to take place. However, government sources have made it very clear to us that this kind of reciprocal relief for each other is going to be bilateral, which means if India is going to give certain amount of concessions to America, it doesn't mean that it's going to give similar concessions if a similar demand is being made by other countries like the EU or any other France or any other European countries are concerned. The benchmark behind this is a good equations between America and India, and also the personal good equations between Donald Trump as well as the Prime Minister Modi, and negotiations and maneuvering is going to take place as far as the terms of reference are concerned, but we are certainly not going to be seen under any pressure or on a back foot.
So the big question is, will India concede to wooing Trump and try and hope that there will be some concessions that will be made? Now, here's what we have learned, and this is Reuters is also reporting this, that India is open to cutting its tariffs on 55%, more than half of US imports to the value of something like $23 billion annually. India is ready to cut exports, cut the import duty on many of these American exports in a bid to try and save the trade relationship. India will see tariff hike from 6 to 10% for key US exports. However, India's tariff cut and the offer to cut for about half of the American imports into India will solely hinge on whether there is going to be relief from the reciprocal tariffs that Trump is threatening from the 2nd of April. All right, let's try and decode the many implications of Trump's tariff move. We're now joined by Douglas Irwin. He is an economics professor at Dartmouth College and author of several trade books, including Clashing Over Commerce, a history of U.S. trade policy. Professor Irwin, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. You've been saying that Trump's reciprocal tariffs make no sense. What consequences do you fear starting the 2nd of April, and what possible scenarios do you foresee once these reciprocal tariffs come into play?
Well, I think if it was taken to an extreme, it would mean many different tariffs on many different products from many different countries, each tailored to specific countries. So it would be endlessly complicated. It would be a major departure from most favored nation trading status under the WTO and the WTO rules that go back to the GATT after World War II. So while there may be a spot or a place for retaliation or selective protection for certain industries under certain conditions, this wholesale revision would really lead to a disintegration of the world trading system as we see it today.
So, in simple terms, if you would explain this to our viewers, after the 2nd of April, when reciprocal tariffs come into play, imported goods are going to be more expensive for American consumers. American consumers are going to be hit hard because, the tariffs will go up in the US, and that means companies will pass that on to the consumer. Will that not be counterproductive?
Well, he thinks, according to his logic, that other countries are taking advantage of the U.S. Whether that's true or not, most economists sort of doubt that. But he's focusing on trade imbalances, mainly the fact that the U.S. runs a trade deficit with many, many countries. Just because the U.S. imports more than it exports to certain countries, however, doesn't mean that the U.S. is being taken advantage of, that this is a bad thing. And you're absolutely right. Imposing tariffs would raise the prices of those goods to consumers, and they would ultimately pay the price, not foreign countries. So as a way of remedying trade deficits, as a way of trying to hurt other countries, it hurts the U.S. It won't really resolve the trade imbalances issue, which require different policy tools. And therefore, I think it's largely going to be an ineffective, indeed counterproductive and possibly destructive policy.
Now, ever since Trump made reciprocal tariffs some kind of a central campaign theme, the stock markets world over, including in the United States, have been tanking. There are very real fears that the U.S. economy could be headed for recession. Trump doesn't seem to be particularly worried. What is your take? Do you see America slipping into a recession later on this year?
Right. Well, those tariffs are going to be unveiled on April 2nd, or at least we'll have a better idea of what those tariffs will entail on April 2nd. And already there are press reports in the U.S. saying that they're going to be considerably scaled back from what was initially discussed. So it may be just a certain number of countries and a select number of products are targeted. It's not going to be the wholesale revision of U.S. trade policy as maybe was suggested earlier. The Secretary of Treasury is talking about the dirty 15. The 15 countries that the U.S. has the largest trade deficits with, and I believe India is in that group. And so those countries will be targeted for special tariffs. It's not clear whether they'll be on certain products or across-the-board tariffs, which have also been discussed within the administration. So we'll have a better sense then, but I think markets are sort of learning that he's very serious about imposing these tariffs, even if there's an economic cost to the U.S. and the world economy. And we'll know more, and the markets may be in for some more, correction on April 2nd.
So Trump has already announced 25% tariffs on the two biggest trading partners of the U.S., Mexico and Canada. He's already announced 10% tariffs in effect on Chinese goods, and China has retaliated as well. There are folks who are saying that India could actually benefit from this. India could end up sending more technology, electronics, jewelry to America, because there's going to be a knock-on effect because of what Trump has done with Mexico, Canada, and China. Do you think there is an opportunity for India here, that India can actually sort of wriggle its way around these tariffs?
I'd be cautiously optimistic. There is a scenario in which the U.S. focuses on those other countries, China, Canada, Mexico, and perhaps the EU. And because of the relationship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, that President Trump takes a more liberal view with respect to India and doesn't attack it or want to impose tariffs, in which case, you're absolutely right. Tariffs on those other trading partners will divert trade to India, just as Vietnam benefited tremendously from the tariffs imposed on China during his first term. And India would then have some great opportunities to receive more foreign investment to export to the U.S. But the danger for India would be if the trade balance, trade surplus that India enjoys with the U.S. grows larger and larger, the more likely it will be that it will be on President Trump's radar screen and he'll want to do something about it. So India has to be careful about that as well. But personal relationships matter a lot to the president, and that might buy India some good grace.
So do you think, at least in that regard, India is in a far better bargaining position than some of these other players? India's economy is the fifth largest. Do you think India has a geopolitical advantage over others? For instance, India, went ahead and bought oil from Russia during the course of the war at much cheaper prices. That was a bugbear for the previous administration as well. But do you think India has a better hand that's been dealt with the deck of cards that it's been dealt with? Compared to China or Canada or Mexico?
Well, I think certainly there's a geostrategic or geopolitical angle to the U.S.-India relationship that the Trump administration is aware of. And so that would act in India's favor. And India is a valued partner of the U.S. For many reasons. I wouldn't emphasize or think that the market size would matter so much. President Trump has gone after China, which is a very large market. He's gone after Canada, which is also one of America's largest trading partners, a large market right next door. So he doesn't seem to be moved by market size considerations so much. But the geopolitics, that may be an angle in which he's more sympathetic to India.
And a final question, Professor Irwin. Are you saying that, we're all looking at April 2nd as this sort of doomsday scenario for Indian trade, in fact, for global trade, but you're actually saying that India could have some very good opportunities post the 2nd of April, and therefore we can all breathe easy, for the moment at least?
Yeah, I don't think India is directly in the crosshairs of President Trump. He hasn't mentioned them nearly as much as he's mentioned Canada and Mexico and China and the EU. I would think after those countries, he'd be concerned about Japan and Korea next for their bilateral balances that the U.S. has with them. So India's not too far down the list. So that's why India has to be careful. But I think, as you've mentioned, there are a couple of factors that are working in India's favor to avoid damage.
All right. Professor Douglas Irwin from the Dartmouth College, professor of economics and a writer of many, many economics books and trade books. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you again post the 2nd of April once these reciprocal tariffs kick in. But Professor Irwin making the point, and a well-founded point, that India could actually find itself in an advantageous position post the 2nd of April compared to countries like China or Canada or Mexico. Trump might actually cut a better deal for India. Talking about Mr. Trump, President Trump cutting deals, he's of course trying to negotiate very actively between Russia and Ukraine, and they are getting somewhere with that, because after 1,126 days, Russia and Ukraine have now agreed to stop using force in the Black Sea, following talks with the United States that happened in Saudi Arabia earlier this week. As per the preliminary tentative agreement between Russia and Ukraine, both countries will allow safe navigation in the Black Sea. A large amount of food grains produced by both Russia and by Ukraine travel through the Black Sea shipping lanes. However, Moscow has laid down some caveats before it can be implemented. That does raise concerns about whether this would change much on the ground. Remember, there was a naval blockade, then there was a deal for about a year, and in 2023, Russia pulled out of that deal. Ukraine now ships much of its exports through NATO waters and not through the Black Sea. Here's a detailed explainer decoding what this Black Sea grain deal actually means and whether it changes anything on the ground. In the talks between Russia and America, which happened in Saudi Arabia, one area of agreement seems to be on the Black Sea deal. What is this deal, and why is Vladimir Putin so keen to revive this deal? The Black Sea Grain Initiative emerged as a crucial agreement amidst the chaos of war when it broke out in early 2022. It was brokered by the United Nations and by Turkey in July of 2022. This deal aimed to facilitate the safe export of Ukrainian agricultural products. After Russia's invasion in February of 2022, Ukraine's Black Sea ports were effectively blockaded by the Russian Navy, and that threatened global food security. The initiative was designed to allow Ukraine, one of the world's leading grain exporters, to resume maritime shipments from its key Black Sea ports. The ports include Odessa, Chornomorsk, and Yuzhny. The deal established safe passage for commercial vessels. It also included joint inspection teams that were stationed in Istanbul to monitor the cargo and to prevent any potential weapon smuggling. Additionally, a parallel memorandum between the United Nations and Russia promised to ease sanctions on Russian agricultural exports. This framework allowed Ukraine to export more than 30 million metric tons of grain within the first year of this deal. The deal also played a vital role in stabilizing global wheat prices, which had skyrocketed after the conflict. However, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Russia repeatedly threatened to withdraw from the agreement, citing unfulfilled demands for sanctions to be lifted on its fertilizer exports, as well as restrictions that Russian banks were facing. Despite several renewals, which happened on a 2-monthly basis, Moscow ultimately exited from the deal in July of 2023, exactly a year later. Putin at that time had accused Western countries of not honoring their commitments. Ukraine's role in this deal is crucial for its survival. Ukraine relies heavily on agricultural exports for its economy. Before the war, over half of Ukraine's exports consisted of agricultural products, with a significant portion of it passing through the Black Sea. The resumption of these shipments is essential for Ukraine's war-torn economy. Further, Kiev also insists that any renewed agreement must not legitimize Russia's blockade. Since the breakdown of the original deal, Ukraine has sought alternative shipping routes with NATO-bordered Western Black Sea waters. Despite facing threats from Russian naval forces, Ukraine has managed to export more than 60 million tons of cargo through these alternative routes. However, Ukraine has demanded that it needs written security guarantees against fresh Russian attacks. President Vladimir Putin's renewed interest in reviving the Black Sea deal stems from several strategic calculations. First and foremost is his desire for sanctions relief. Moscow hopes to reconnect the state-owned Roselkoch Bank to the SWIFT banking system and also restore its ammonia exports through Ukrainian territory. Additionally, Russia is also wanting to establish its maritime control over the Black Sea. With Ukraine exploring alternative shipping routes through NATO waters, Moscow perceives this as a threat, something that could escalate tensions in the future. Moreover, reviving the deal also allows Russia to position itself as a responsible actor on the global stage. Amid criticism from developing countries in the global south regarding volatile food prices, returning to negotiations and helping revive this deal could give Moscow some diplomatic leverage.
We're in deep discussions with Russia and Ukraine, and I would say it's going well, but it's a situation we should have never had to even think about. Should have never happened.
The United States, under the Trump administration, has taken a direct role in trying to mediate discussions for a renewed Black Sea grain deal. Trump administration is advocating for a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea that would protect commercial shipping interests. At the same time, it also wants to support efforts to revive the Black Sea grain deal. However, critics argue that this approach risks sidelining European allies and inadvertently legitimizes Russian aggression. Europe is still smarting from Trump's snub by not including them in the talks with either Ukraine or Russia. The previous agreement fell apart because of several structural flaws and acts of bad faith from both Russia and Ukraine. There were renewal cycles that happened on a 120-day period. It allowed Moscow to manipulate extensions for its own benefit while demanding unrelated concessions. Further, after withdrawing from the deal in July of 2023, Russia launched attacks on Odessa's grain terminals. It demonstrated a lack of commitment to any diplomatic resolution. The economic importance of the Black Sea cannot be overstated, both for Russia and for Ukraine. For Ukraine, before the war began, approximately 90% of its grain exports were shipped via Black Sea ports. Following Russia's blockade in 2023, around 40% of grain exports have continued through this corridor, while 60% have shifted to European rail and road routes. Agricultural exports were generating more than $20 billion annually for Ukraine before the invasion. For Russia too, access to Black Sea trade routes is equally critical. About 30% of Russian grain exports and essential fertilizer shipments transit through this body of water. Maintaining dominance over these Black Sea routes reinforces Moscow's influence not just in Eastern Europe, but also throughout the Mediterranean. It's also a key entryway into the Middle East. In terms of shipping volumes, the Black Sea accounts for roughly 2.5% of all global maritime trade. That's a figure which is significantly lower than any of the other major shipping routes like the Malacca Straits or the Suez Canal. Since August 2023, after Russia pulled out of the deal, Ukraine managed to remove around 60 million tons of cargo through its corridors despite the ongoing threats from the Russian Navy. The Black Sea grain deal is a delicate balance between various geopolitical rivalries that are playing out amidst the Ukraine conflict. Reviving this deal could ease global food prices while also reducing naval tensions between Russia and Ukraine. However, there are still significant obstacles. Moscow insists on sanctions relief, and Kiev has very definitive security concerns. As both countries, aided by the Trump administration and the United States, navigate this, the Black Sea continues to serve as a critical choke point for Eurasian commerce and also potentially a flashpoint for a broader geopolitical conflict.
Donald Trump has dropped yet another political bombshell. A sweeping executive order that could overhaul how Americans vote. Proof of citizenship, tougher deadlines, tighter federal grip. It's the boldest move yet in Trump's years-long war on the U.S. election system. Signed on March 25th, the new order mandates documentary proof of citizenship to register for federal elections. It also insists that all mail-in ballots must be received by Election Day. No exceptions, no postmark loopholes. Trump says this will stop what he calls massive election fraud.
You all understand that? Yes. Election fraud. You've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks. And we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other. And it's an honor to sign this one. To sign all of them, but to sign this one is a great honor.
But critics argue this is a solution in search of a problem. Actual voter fraud in the U.S.? Extremely rare, according to years of data. Here's the catch. An estimated 21.3 million eligible U.S. citizens. Nearly 9% of voters don't have immediate access to the required documents. That includes married women with mismatched IDs, senior citizens, low-income voters, and more. Voting rights groups are already warning. This could disenfranchise millions. Trump's order directs powerful federal agencies, including Homeland Security, the State Department, and Social Security, to share data with states to track non-citizen voters. It also tells the Attorney General to prioritize cracking down on election crimes, especially in states that don't cooperate. And there's more. The order threatens to cut federal funding to states that don't follow these new rules. A move legal experts call a direct challenge to the constitutional right of states to run their own elections. The order also takes aim at technology. It tells the U.S. Election Assistance Commission to revise guidelines and ban voting systems that use barcodes or QR codes in vote tallying. In states like Georgia, QR codes are widely used for in-person voting. Now, those systems could be deemed non-compliant, jeopardizing billions in federal funding. The legal blowback has already begun. Colorado's Secretary of State called the order unlawful. Democratic Representative Joe Morell called it immoral and illegal. Top attorney Mark Elias has already promised, "We will sue." That's because under the U.S. Constitution, states have the final say over how elections are run, not the White House. Experts say this executive order could hit a wall in court. Supporters, mainly Republicans, say this is about restoring faith in elections. Opponents argue it's a politically motivated power grab that could strip millions of their right to vote. Even Trump's allies are fundraising off the move, like Mike Lindell, who called it the fix for America's sick elections. A new executive order, old claims of fraud, and a country divided once again not just over who wins elections, but how those elections are run.
The future belongs to Bharat, and the Rising Bharat Summit 2025 is where visionaries show us how to lead it. Get inspired by Arvind Srinivas, co-founder and CEO of Perplexity, the artificial intelligence disruptor that is redefining how the world searches for knowledge. Gain transformative insights from Vivek Wadhwa, CEO of Vionix Biosciences, acclaimed academic, entrepreneur, and author, on how India can lead the next wave of breakthroughs in AI, science, and innovation. Join us at Bharat Mandapam, Delhi on the 8th and 9th of April for a powerful exchange of ideas shaping the nation's next leap. Book your passes now.
लाल रंग इसका
Big statement that has been made by Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, who has now said that people of all religions are safe in the state and that if Hindus are safe, Muslims in Uttar Pradesh are safe too. He was speaking exclusively to news agency ANI, where Yogi Adityanath asserted that as a yogi, he wishes for everyone's happiness and highlighted the tolerant nature of Hindus, saying that a Muslim family would feel safe among hundreds of Hindu families. However, 50 Hindu families might not feel safe among hundreds of Muslim families, and that Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Pakistan are examples of the same. Meanwhile, the opposition has now hit out at Yogi Adityanath, calling this an attempt to divert attention from real issues. Let's listen in to the latest war words first.
100 हिंदू परिवारों के बीच में 100 हिंदू परिवारों के बीच में एक मुस्लिम परिवार सबसे सुरक्षित रहता है। उसको इसके पर्व और त्योहारों को, उसको अपने सभी मजहबी कर्मों को करने के लिए, या जिस मत और मजहब या संप्रदाय या सेक्ट का अनुयायी होगा उसको उस परंपरा के अनुसार अपने सारे धार्मिक मान्यताओं या उपासना विधि को पूरी स्वतंत्रता होती है। लेकिन मैं कहता हूं 100 परिवारों के बीच में, एक हिंदू की बात तो दूर करिए, 100 मुस्लिम परिवारों के बीच में 50 हिंदू सुरक्षित रह सकता है क्या? नहीं रह सकता। अब बांग्लादेश आपके सामने उदाहरण है, इससे पहले पाकिस्तान उदाहरण था, अफगानिस्तान में क्या हुआ था। ये चीजें दिखाती हैं और होशियारी यही है कि कहीं धुआं उड़ रहा हो या किसी को ठोकर लग रही हो तो हमें ठोकर लगे इससे पहले हम संभल जाएं। उत्तर प्रदेश में मुसलमान सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षित है, सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षित है। अगर हिंदू सुरक्षित है तो वह भी सुरक्षित है। अगर दंगे यहां यूपी में होते थे जो 2017 के पहले, अगर हिंदू की दुकान जलती थी तो मुसलमान की भी जलती थी, हिंदू का घर जलता था तो मुसलमान की भी जलती थी। और 17 के बाद से दंगे बंद हुए। अगर हिंदू सुरक्षित है तो मुसलमान भी सुरक्षित है।
हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी ये बताएं, उनकी कुर्सी सुरक्षित है कि नहीं है? कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि हिंदू मुसलमान की जो अब सुरक्षा की भावना जाग रही है, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि उनकी कुर्सी डगमगा रही हो। याद होगा जब उन्होंने एक बार योग किया था, कैसे एक टांग पे डगमगा रहे थे। कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि उनकी कुर्सी डगमगा रही हो, इसलिए वो कह रहे हो कि हमारे सब भाईचारा बहुत अच्छा है।
प्रदेश में हिंदू सुरक्षित है तभी मुस्लिम भी सुरक्षित रहेंगे। नहीं, देखो, हिंदू भी सुरक्षित रहे और मुस्लिम भी सुरक्षित रहे, सभी भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षित रहे, ये सरकार की प्राथमिकताओं में से है। और मोदी जी का सबका साथ सबका विकास सबके लिए प्रयास और सबका विश्वास का जो अभियान है वो इसी संदर्भ में है भी। और मैं समझता हूँ इसी उद्घोष का उन्होंने अपने शब्दों में इसका प्रयोग किया है। ये बात सही है कि देश में बहुसंख्यक और अल्पसंख्यक किसी भी देश में ये विरासत होते हैं और इनकी एक दूसरे के प्रति समझदारी ये आवश्यकता होती है। और ये बात सही है कि अगर हिंदू सुरक्षित है तो जाहिर सी बात है कि मुस्लिम भी सुरक्षित रहेगा, और मुस्लिम सुरक्षित है तो हिंदू भी खुश रहेगा। इसमें गलत बात कौन सी है?
ऐसा है कि ये खाली ध्यान भटकाने वाली ही बात करेंगे, क्योंकि ये आज भी नहीं बता पाएंगे कि जितने इन्होंने MOU साइन किए थे वो कितने धरातल पे उतरे हैं। अगर आप इनके मॉडल को देख लेंगे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट के लिए तो सब इस पे हंसी उड़ाएंगे कि किस तरह का ये डेवलपमेंट मॉडल है, जहां लाखों करोड़ रुपए के MOU साइन होते हैं और धरातल पर नहीं उतरते हैं। और ये खाली अब मैनेजमेंट और मीडिया के माध्यम से अपनी छवि को सुधारना चाहते हैं।
Let me take this across to my colleague Arun Dhanta, who's now with us on the broadcast. Arun, this is a far cry from when Yogi Adityanath had said "batenge to katenge." What explains this change of stance?
Well, see, Yogi Adityanath is talking about the inclusive development, and in fact, he's saying that his governance and his government have been working in that everybody, whether it is a Hindu, Muslim, or any other community, they are getting all the benefits of the state government, and for the state government, everybody is equal. But at the same time, he also says this, in fact, make that comparison when he says that if a Muslim family stays amongst the 100 Hindu families, they are protected. But if it happens otherwise, when you have 50 Hindu families staying at a place where you have, more than 100 Muslim families, can they be safe? So I think on one side he's talking about inclusivity. Secondly, he's also talking about this thing and also comparing it with what happened in Bangladesh and Pakistan, how the minorities numbers have drastically decreased over the years. Of course, one thing is very clear, that Yogi Adityanath knows that the upcoming assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh is something which is very, very important for him, because what happened in Lok Sabha polls, the way Samajwadi Party gained that momentum, I think for him the challenge is A, to beat the anti-incumbency, secondly also to bring everyone together, and that's the reason why you see when he was talking about batenge to katenge. So he was in fact talking about the larger Hindu community, which of course includes every caste, because he realizes that if you really want to establish
Viewers, be forewarned, be prepared. A massive storm is headed our way, and it is going to blow once again off the streets of this country, especially in the north, viewers.